Chairman King and members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting me to participate in this hearing today. When I entered medical school, I believed that the availability of abortion on demand was solely an issue of women's rights, and during my residency, I moonlighted doing abortions.
Could you get a little closer to the microphone, please?
Is that better?
Okay.
As I examined the tissue after each procedure, I was fascinated by the tiny, perfectly formed limbs and organs, but because of my training and conditioning, a human fetus seemed no different than a chick embryo to me. I continued to do abortions without reservation, even while pregnant. But when I returned to the clinic after my delivery, I was confronted with 3 situations that changed my thinking. I had personally done 3 abortions on a girl scheduled that morning, but when I protested, the clinic staff said that I had no right to refuse her. I told them that was easier for them to say. I was the one that had to do the killing. The second case involved a woman who, when asked by her friend if she wanted to see the tissue, replied, "No, I just want to kill it." I felt like saying, "What did that baby ever do to you?" The third patient was a mother of 4 who felt she couldn't afford another child. She cried throughout her time at the clinic. What struck me was the apathy of the first patient and the hostility of the second, contrasted with the sorrow and misery of the woman who knew what it was to have a child. I had finally made the connection between fetus and baby and realized that the baby was the innocent victim in all of this. The fact that it was unwanted was no longer enough justification for me to kill it, and I could no longer do abortions. My views also changed during my practice as I saw young women who did amazingly well after deciding to keep their unplanned pregnancies, in contrast to those who were struggling with the emotional aftermath of abortion. That was not what I was expecting. I don't believe a woman can remain unscathed after killing her child. At some point, usually after childbirth or the inability to get pregnant, the realization of what they did hits them. In fact, it wasn't until after I had my first child that I regretted having my own abortion. I wish there had been a heartbeat bill back then, or that it had not been so terribly easy to get an abortion. I wish I had had more confidence in myself and my family. I believed the lie that if you are young and have an unplanned pregnancy, it will ruin your life. Our society has been subjected to extreme propaganda on this issue from pro-choice advocates for years. We have convinced our young women that an unwanted pregnancy is the worst thing that can happen to them, and that their right to reproductive freedom is more important than their baby's right to life. We have sanitized our language to make abortion more palatable and talk about the fetus instead of the baby, and terminating the pregnancy rather than killing the baby. We have moved farther away from the idea that life is precious and closer to the utilitarian attitudes that destroyed so many lives during the last century. More and more, we are embracing a culture of death that only values the strong and healthy. I love to meet adults that I have delivered, but it's always bittersweet because I'm reminded of all the people I will never meet because I aborted them. It also reminds me that I am a mass murderer. Because we can't see who they will become, we feel justified in sacrificing babies in the womb for the people we can see. I support the Heartbeat Protection Act because it uses the heartbeat, a very concrete sign of life that people can identify with, to define when the fetus should be protected. It will protect the lives of those who won't continue to be unless we do something. They won't be here to cure cancer, to write a beautiful symphony, or to wipe a child's tears. One just has to look at the almost warrant to get a glimmer of who they might become and how they might benefit society. I think about my beautiful cousin, whose Bangladeshi mother was raped by a Pakistani soldier. She survived her mother's abortion, was rescued by Mother Teresa's nuns, and was later adopted by my aunt and uncle. Perhaps we should ask those who were conceived through rape if others like them should be denied protection under such an act. We know from a scientific standpoint that the baby in the womb is a human being and not just a blob of tissue. Birth changes nothing but the baby's environment. What justification do we have to deny them personhood and human rights until after their birth. I want to thank those of you who have supported this bill for your vital efforts to protect those who have no voice and cannot protect themselves, and I thank you all for listening to me.